Hello, everybody. Welcome back to that Man United fan. Again, we're joined by Sam, and it's a very exciting show for us ahead. Today, we are going to be discussing a lot of different things, especially about the transfer news that came around last night about Brian Mabumo, about them not signing or signing for the club. Talks ongoing that Gyökeres is still likely to be able to or open to joining United. So, discussing a couple of things about Gyökeres as well. Yesterday, we talked about how Victor Osimhen, sorry, I'm pronouncing their name wrong, Osimhen and how Victor Boniface, probably I'm mixing the two people up right now, are the options that Sam preferred for the number 9 position. And we'll sort of have his views on why Gyökeres could or could not leave United. Just then to just start off, let's go ahead and discuss this news which was emerging about Brian Mabumo. I think there are a couple of outlets, Manchester Evening News quoting somebody I remember. I don't really like Manchester Evening News. It's a very shit house, but never mind. That publication was mentioning that um, there is a probability that Mabumo might be convinced to join Tottenham now if they match the offer for United, and Brentford are asking around 70 million pounds for signing Brian Mabumo. So what are your thoughts, Sam? Do you think that we will lose out on Mabumo, or do you think it's much more likely that he'll join us?
I actually think he's going to join us, to be honest. I think if he leaves Brentford, he's likely to join us. Um, because I do understand the sentiments that with Thomas Frank joining, Tottenham, it might be appealing for him to go there. But at the end of the day, like if the player already indicated, at the start of the saga that he wanted to be at Manchester United, I think that there must be a reason for why he wanted to be there. So I don't think that Thomas Frank moving to Tottenham changes much for Bremo, especially given that the hole in the deal is not it's not the player initially, but more or less how much Brentford is willing to take. And when it comes to spending power, I don't know. Maybe Tottenham can spend more than we can, obviously because they won the Europa League and also as well because they have maybe more on their budget. But I don't think that they spend that way. So I don't know if they can outbid Manchester United for Mbimo. So that's what I'm banking on. I'm not sure that they can. And if that doesn't happen, then I think that the player is more likely to end up at United if we are able to negotiate the right price with Brentford.
But I still think it's not about the bidding, right? Because Tottenham won the Europa League, so that would give them some amount of money. They
Yeah.
haven't really got anybody, if I'm not wrong, of any like repute or any like
Yeah.
substantial amount of money. So I think it's
Yeah.
still probable for them to go ahead and buy somebody like a Brian Mabumo. But I think this idea about him playing in a top six club being Man United, in the sense that of course traditionally top six, not top six last season with the shit performance that we had for the entire year. But with his desire to play for United, I think there's something deeper there. I do not know, of course. I am not in touch with the player camp or whatever, and I do not really know what is this inclination. But from reports that came on early, I think there was this discussion that he was only interested in taking up the Man United offer, and he was waiting for Man United to like figure out the financial package. Though there was a conversation which happened that United was sending a second bid in a while back. I don't know if it succeeded or not, but I hope it does work out some way or the other. But what do you think should be an ideal price for Mabumo? Because I think it's getting to a point where it's becoming a bit more expensive.
Yeah, I think that Mbimo is like a 45 million pounds option, to be honest. And maybe we pay too much for these players. Like I prefer Mbemo to Cunha, in my opinion. Um, I think that the style that he has is compatible with the system that we want to play in. We need players who are not just technical, but they are also very strong. We do need very, very strong players in the team. And also as well, he's been in the Premier League for a very long time and it's consistent performances. So I would say that maybe we overpaid for Cunha, but I don't think that means that we have to also overpay for Mbimo. So I think for Brentford, 45 million pounds is enough for them. Like I don't know. When it comes to Manchester United, people want to exploit us with the prices and stuff. So I don't know why they haven't accepted or if it is the case that they want like a 60 million pound package for him. I don't think that makes a lot of sense, especially if, just like you pointed out, we have less to spend because we have already brought in one player and we need to bring in one more, even if we bring in more. So we need to sign a striker. So I think that might be a reason for why he goes to Tottenham, but I don't know. I think Brighton are currently the problem.
Fair. I think there is another like conversation here when we're talking about transfer ins and out, because I think Brian Mbeumo would be somebody we really need, especially because at front we are very bad at scoring goals. I think the goal output is something which is really, really problematic for us for the last like 4 or 5 years now, if I'm not wrong. Even if we had like established strikers like Ronaldo and Edison Cavani, the entirety of the Premier League, our goal difference was terrible. And goal differences also become very important when, because most of the teams are performing so well in the Prem now that it becomes hard for you to differentiate. And if the goal difference is not there and others are scoring like 100 goals and just conceding like 60 or 50 goals and having like a positive goal difference for that end, it's not going to work out for us. So I think that's necessary that we strengthen them. I think United would be incentivized to do this, but in case this doesn't happen, do you think there's any alternative that we have which we can probably go for?
Uh, to be honest, I think if the transfer from Bimo doesn't pull through, then I would say that we leave it. Like, there's no need. Um, I don't think that there is any alternative or player that I think that fits the profile. Some people might say Mateta, but I think he's more of a center forward than he is uh, a 10 or a winger. So I think maybe my advice would be if we can't get Mbemo, then we just have to stick with what we have currently and maybe get a striker and prioritize that instead. Because I think that the reason why we're getting Mbemo is that probably is an upgrade on what we currently have in the team, not because we don't have players that can play in that particular role specifically or can adapt in preseason. So one is that we are always slow with business. So even if there are options that might exist in the market, we'll find it difficult to get it done. And I think that we're not making the most of preseason for a team that performed so badly last season. So my advice would be if we can't get Mbemo done, then maybe we just prioritize sealing the striker deal and move on.
So I think there's always a conversation about the striker continuing on from yesterday as well. We discussed this much about the striker, but I think the other issue that we are conceding too much goals. We do have like enough amount of people in the center back pairing and the roles that we have in the back three. But I think the goalkeeper does need like a bit of a revisitation. I was confident and then I wasn't. So I do not know anything about like continuing with Onana. I'm not super confident about how Onana is and how Onana is dealing with the way the ball is coming into his net. So I had a problem with De Gea as well. Like his saves were phenomenal. I never ever had a problem with De Gea saving. The only thing that I was sort of at that point of time against De Gea about was probably his distribution was lacking in the sense that he really did not want to come out for the ball. He was like a very traditional keeper who did not want to sweep at all. So the high line that you would expect for like center backs was completely invisible because the keeper would like just cement his legs in say the 6 yard box and never actually move ahead to actually go and like hit the ball away if it's something which is thrown behind the center back line for United. So I think the discussion is important, right? That there are, of course, two things that we need to look at. One is that we need to like have less goals put into the net. Our defense needs to do miles better, especially our fullbacks. So we can have a discussion about the fullbacks as well. But I think also that we need to have a much more like robust center back pairing or triplets that we might call them. I don't know what to refer to a three back. But then of course the striker and the attacking players also like matter. Ahmad was somebody who was like really open towards doing well in the team suddenly, but then his injury really put us off by quite a bit. So that is something that we were like really hard done by at that point of time. So I'm pretty sure that he will continue probably in the right wing back role, but we can have this discussion in a while. We also have reports that there are a couple of interests for other players, like there's a center back which we are interested in currently from Genk. There were a couple of reports coming around about Tolu Arokodare. I think he's also from Nigeria, so you can probably tell me better. He's a center forward, sorry, and has a decent amount of goal contribution for his side, playing towards the league that he is in. So What do you think? Do we need to like transition out of the transfer market for targets which are like shunning us actively? Like Gyökeres is probably been said to prefer Arsenal over us. We of course can't be picky eaters when we have done so poorly in our season and we're not really offering anything to the players joining us. But what do you think? Where should we like pivot at this point of time? Because not having a striker for preseason is also something which I find very problematic, and our preseason is probably going to be ruined by a lot if we do not really have somebody there.
Yeah, I'll start from the goalkeeper conversation. First, I think I agree with you that De Gea had some issues with transitioning to becoming the modern goalkeeper. I think it was necessary for us to get a goalkeeper, to at some point, maybe replace De Gea or step up the competition. But we had one, and I think we messed up. We just messed up. I really don't know how Man United crashed the goalkeeping system with bringing in Onana when there was an obvious succession. There was Dean Henderson. He did well at Sheffield United for some seasons, before getting back into the first team. That was, I think, in my opinion, that was enough competition for De Gea. But obviously, as well, is that maybe I just didn't like the way De Gea was sent away. It's very shameful. Like you don't do that to a player that has been the best player in the last 10 years that you've had, one of the most consistent players in his role. So I agree with you. The performances of De Gea needed an upgrade, and that is an upgrade that was going to come based on the sort of era of goalkeeping that De Gea did fit in, and how the standards were changing. But I just thought that we messed up by um, being too hasty with bringing in Onana. I would blame that on Ten Hag anyways, because I think he was trying to build an Ajax in Man United, instead of actually focusing on being a Man United coach. But more importantly is that I think we're also selling Bayanda. Like I also hear reports that United are willing to offering them up for sale to a different club, and also are interested in the Argentinian drama king, Emiliano Martinez. So uh I think that maybe that might be a good option. I know Martinez is great, although I really don't like his antics on the pitch. He's a very nasty goalkeeper, but he gets the job done. Um, Also, I think he's less of a sweeper than than how do you say Onana, for example. But also Onana hasn't been getting the goods done. Maybe because he hasn't had a very good set of attacking players to work with as well. But his distribution has been, okay. It hasn't been what we expected. The reason why we were signing him. So maybe we're looking at having someone that fits the description of Allison or Ederson in some way. But I don't think he has been getting there as well. So um, maybe we just messed up the goalkeeper thing. For defenders, I don't know. I think that the current crop of players that we uh have been phenomenal. We just maybe have to keep them fit. And that's just the problem. Lenny is doing very great. Even though he was one of the players in the Ten Hag era, I think we overpaid for him, but he's a fantastic player, and he's very young and has a very great potential. So I think that with time we have a young setup. Aiden Heaven is also looking very, very promising, to be honest as well. And we also have Lisandro Martinez. Not a lot of people are a big fan of Martinez as well. I also have problems with the fact that he's getting fit, but obviously no one is going to talk about that as a problem unless it's Eric Bailly. So I think that was also one of the very, very good defenders that Manchester United missed out on in the past. But I think with a backline, this set of centre backs that we have, even if we leave Maguire on the bench, as England boy, but not the very top player in my opinion, even though he's slightly improved in the past year, he still continues to make those mistakes that cost the team sometimes. And I don't think I prefer for Shaw to go, because I think that he struggles to play in that centre back role as well. So maybe we might need some backups in defense, but I think we have players who can actually help us out for the next 4 or 5 years if we can keep them fit. Yes. I really don't know the striker that you mentioned, the Nigerian striker. Um, but I don't know. I don't know what Gyökeres situation is at the moment. I'm really hoping that um a deal falls through, to be honest. So but I think it's unlikely at this point because he never goes to Arsenal anymore. I don't think Arsenal will sign two strikers. Um, I'm not sure that they will sign two strikers, to be honest, because I think Ateta is even being pressured to sign a striker and getting two that fit the same profile in that they are going to want to start. He knows as well that going to Arsenal is not going to guarantee him game time anymore if Sesko is playing as well. So I don't think Ateta's system relies so much on having a striker or having a very pronounced nine. So I'm not sure he's going to be fielding two nines in the same game. So if he knows what's best for him, then moving to Arsenal is not going to be a good deal for him, especially given that they have signed Sesko.
I think that's very true because firstly, it's probably never going to happen that there are going to be two strikers in Arsenal. It was a very crazy fan theory that was happening for a long time. I don't really know where it started, but I really am sure that it's not going to resolve itself in that sense. But when you're talking about Dean Henderson, that was also a time when I missed out. Like I thought that it was a very shit decision to take out Dean Henderson because like he was doing the sweeping not that well.
Yeah,
Maybe he was not good at throwing the ball out, but otherwise he
yeah.
was decently well. He didn't palm the ball into the striker's feet at least, or for sure. But what can we say? So yeah, so I think there was also like you mentioned Aiden Heaven and Lenny Yoro. Our future is more or less very well set. But the problem is that we don't really have a lot of like leadership at the back because I think in a second in a way, there might be certain amount of people who are going to go like away from United at a point of time. Martinez is not able to stay fit that much. Lisandro Martinez, sorry. We'll talk about the goalkeeper Martinez in a second. But Lisandro Martinez not being fit all the time, I think that's a huge problem that comes around from this because you don't really know what to expect at that point of time from this individual because it's becoming a headache right now to deal with them. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's at most we can say that there is a probability that people will end up. They will probably prefer getting another like senior center back in. Martin Delict isn't really like a lot of does not really have a lot of seniority
I forgot.
by
I
age, but
forgot
he
the
does
name.
have seniority. He does have seniority by playing in a lot of like
Yeah,
questionable positions and in
yeah.
a question and a lot of like finals and nice ways of progressing through events. But I also think there's just not that thing to consider. There's also the idea that Eden Heaven is young. They need to be like doing a bit better. I'm sure there was somebody from the youth who was playing with the first team, Fredrickson or somebody. I really liked him as well. I don't know if you've seen Fredrickson play out from the like left of the back three, but I really like them. But Lindelof being gone, I think it's time that some people from the youth team get promoted and we like blood in a couple of other people because it's going to be a terrible season anyways. Because we can't really go from a season where we finish 15 and then suddenly start doing better. That's impossible. So we need to like sort of probably mentally prepare about having the next season to be probably as problematic or as questionable or as sad as the one that we had right now. So we probably would prefer to get a center back, but I don't really see finances for the center back. And for the goalkeeper situation, oh my God. I really don't like Martinez's antics. I really don't appreciate somebody who puts the trophy in the way that he did and like celebrates with that. It's really like childish for me, and that childishness is something that creates a lot of problem in the back line, and I really, really hate that happening. But as a goalkeeper, I can't fault Martinez that much. They have done well. They're probably not of a profile where they're a unique sweeper keeper, but we are not playing Ten Hag ball anymore. We are probably not going to need a complete sweeper keeper. We need somebody who makes good saves because we're already playing a back three. From the back three, two are usually going to hang back and one is going to move into the central mid. So it's much more likely that we'll get away with not having like a very perfect sweeper keeper. But it's also that Martinez will probably stay for quite a bit of time and has already worked in the Premier League. And I'm very unsure about bringing people out from the Premier League because we don't know how they work for us. So similarly, even with Gyökeres, I was having a lot of hesitation. Like if you're bringing somebody out from outside, you don't really know how they are like going to do in the Prem. So it's not, it's very different. The physicality of the game in England is very different. The way in which the progression happens of the ball is very different. The way that transition play happens is very different. The way that they're going to have to deal with probably multiple games a week is going to be very different. So you do believe that it's not possible week in and week out to just put Gyökeres up front and say, "Oh my God, we have solved every problem that United ever has." It's not going to work that way. So probably we need to figure it out, but we are doing the best that we can, I guess, at that point. So I think the next order of business, sort like a very interesting discussion because we were talking about forwards and goal scoring. I think there's a lot of problem with midfielders as well. They are not really that good or adapt at like transitioning play from the center line, center back line to say the forwards, and I think that harms us a lot. They're also very bad at like stepping in at the right places. Except I think at some points Ugarte does it well. Casemiro has good judgment but does not have the legs. So I'm not sure Casemiro can continue sustaining that particular idea about intercepting balls which are thrown into midfield or like transitioning into midfield. So probably the next discussion becomes that is Toby Collier or Kobe Maino ready and are going to be given game time over Bruno? Because if I am to be very honest, a pairing of Kobe and Ugarte looked quite solid to me, and even Casemiro and Ugarte as like the 8 and 6 in the team look very solid to me. And if you play Mabumo up front with say probably Kunha, it looks like a very settled team. But then if you're buying two number 10s and we are putting Bruno in the back line, like just sitting ahead of say the center backs, I find it very hard to say that Bruno will be dropped ever because he's usually never dropped by any manager. I do not support that idea because sometimes he's very obviously having a shit game and the team should be prioritized instead of a player. Even if he might have a brilliant moment right at the end of the game, just hoping and praying for that to happen is a very stupid ploy to be taken by any manager. And I really don't understand all of the managers that we've had doing it till now. So, what do you think? Because I think there were a couple of others like Fletcher and all, which are coming out from in the post-season tour. We got to see Fletcher, we got to see Seko Kone. I really, really like Kone. The issue is then, however, I don't think Amorim will put him in that midfield because Kone
Yeah.
and Ugarte, I feel there is a magic formula there. But I'm not the manager of Man United, so what do you think?
In my head, I'm trying to think about to think how the team plays. I have a problem with people and how they rate Kobe Maino. Like I don't know, people say he's not quick enough. And I'm wondering, like, how much pace do you need to play in the midfield? I don't think he's not quick enough. And second, maybe I think he's good in a pivot role, like more advanced, but he does the job as well. When he's playing in that, when he's playing with someone with peppered with one of the more defensive midfielders like Casemiro or Ugarte, he does very, very well. And I think that's the more reason why we got to know about him in the first place was that he had the ability to win the ball in very critical situation and hold on to it as well, not just intercept. He had the ability to hold on to the ball. So I think pairing Ugarte and Meno in midfield is ideal. And so Bruno can be more advanced. I'm not entirely sure. Like that's the problem. I'm not really sure if Amorim gets Konya and Bimo, what does he want to do? Does he want to play both of them? Does he want to play Mbimo in a more advanced role and Cunha in a more wing role? Because I know Mbimo usually he plays like a false nine in some way. So like he's always moving from the wing inside, cutting inside the box a lot of the time. But I know Cunha plays much more deeper inside the attack. So I don't know if what he might need to do then is maybe Cunha on the left and how do you say one of the uh, one of the wing backs on the right as well, probably Ahmad, and then two midfielders, probably maybe Ugarte and Mainu, or I don't know who he wants to put in there. Then Fernandez plays much more in the 10 role, and then you have two persons up front, maybe Mbimo and whoever is getting in. But I'm not really sure if that's what he's going for because it's confusing. If we have Mbimo and Cunha, where does Bruno play? Uh, where does Bruno play? If we are also going to have a striker in the team, so where's Bruno going to play?
Is he
And
just
also,
planning to sell Bruno at the end of the day?
probably that could be valid, but I think he's expressed like some sentiment that he doesn't want Bruno to go, like he doesn't want Bruno to leave. I think he likes Bruno to stay. I'm not really sure, but
I mean, there is a
Would he want
good
Bruno to go?
connection there, of course. So he wouldn't want Bruno to go, but that's not what the team needs at that point of time now, does it?
Definitely, definitely. I think that's very valid assessment.
So
But in my opinion, I don't know. I'm not really psyched up about Bruno, but like he's done well so far. And he's carried the team to a very large extent. So maybe Bruno might not fit what the team needs, what the philosophy of the manager is as well. But um, I don't think he leaves. Like I think it's very unlikely that he leaves, and that if he stays, then that becomes a problem for Amorim because I don't know if he has the how do you say the weights to bench Bruno or to play Bruno on the bench to achieve what he wants on the pitch. So I'm not really sure what Amorim is going for with the nature of the signings that he's looking for. He's looking for Mbimo and also has Kunyan looking for one more striker. So I'm not really sure what he's going for. Especially given that we have a lot of attacking players that we haven't sold. And that's one of the things that we haven't realized here. So there's going to be we need to do load shedding first. We need to shed players rather at this point. I think a lot more than we need to get some players in. Um, maybe we get some players in, but the problem is that if he has to maybe a selection headache with who plays Hoyland, Sexy, Garnacho if he doesn't go, Sancho and Rashford probably they leave, but I'm not sure Garnacho leaves. But I'm just thinking that there's probably going to be a selection headache. I think Sexy might be much more of a substitute. Hoyland probably gets sold, even though I think as well he should stay. He should be given some chance to develop and learn in the team. But I don't really know at this point what Amorim is going for, like with the signings. They look all nice and fluffy. But with the midfield thing, I think that Maino is like a really fantastic player. And I was so shocked at some point that United were willing to let him go. Like that is very crazy in my head. So yeah, Casemiro, I think can play not every game. I think he's very happy with the role that he's playing, the contributions that's making to the team. I don't think he wants to play every game. He wants to play when he's needed, and he's really happy to do that. And it's also a very professional attitude from a player. I don't know, maybe he's being professional because he earns a lot of money, but I think he turns up usually when he's on the pitch. Maybe not in the defensive aspect of the midfield, but he's willing to move forward in certain positions and also get the ball up for others as well. So I don't think he should be a starter. Maybe we can move him out for the wages, but I think there are important moments that he came through for last season as well. Even though he's also tiring out. But also defensively in the midfield, he's not doing like a terrible job, like what you would expect from Harry Maguire to do with his role and what he usually does sometimes, even though he comes forward and also does well in attack. He makes very horrible mistakes defensively. For Casemiro, he isn't making so much horrible mistakes as he's just been disadvantaged by the fact that he's old already. Uh, but doing well given the nature of the league and how how physical the league is. So, yeah,
the one thing that I forgot to mention was that even I don't agree with how De Gea was sent out, but probably Man United did very big injustice in terms of how he was like shunned out of like the team. But
that
then again,
that's
there's
crazy.
probably a lot of like conversation that we can simply have
That's
about that.
crazy.
It's a sad
That's
reality that
crazy.
exists within. So, anyways, I think the conversation that becomes very confusing for us because we don't really know what is the situation that he's going to like put the players in. Is he going for a system change? Is he going for a formation change? Is he going for like um rotation? Because I think the headache is real. The question then, Sam, is it a good headache to have or is it a bad headache to have?
I think it's good to be honest, because last season I think we struggled for not having players to put in the game. Having to play Hoyland every game was not because he was and this is like my problem with Amorim letting Rashford go at that point in the season was that you're just not going to have any options. Maybe the attitude was a problem, but I think that we could have performed better last season. Not performed better and finished in the top 10. But I think that we probably wouldn't have finished, 15th or 16th if we had Rashford on the team. or if we had, one of those attacking options that we're missing out on, because they could come in and change the game. You had an option. Maybe maybe they don't even play in the game at all. But Højlund was starting every game. Like he was starting every game, and it's not just because he was good,
Xerxes got
but
injured,
because
right? So he was forced to start a lot
yeah,
of games as well.
exactly. Zexi got injured too at some point. So Ahmad also got injured too at some point as well. So it's not like he was doing so well. He was like a fantastic player. We just didn't have an option. But like if we had an option, then we have someone to actually compete with Højlund, and maybe that gets him to perform or to know that there's some pressure on him. Like he was just going from game to game, having mid performances and starting as well. Like that's horrible, to be honest. Even Garnacho, I think that in some regard he was doing well at some point early on in the season, but he started playing rubbish, to be honest. And I felt that it was also down to the fact that no one is going to take my spots, and no one is better to take my spot. You notice it to the team last season. What happened at some point is that you have Garnacho feeling so entitled that he doesn't pass the ball to Højlund on the pitch. He doesn't do that. Like he became very, very intentional. He's like, I'm better than you, so I'm going to do what I want with the ball when the ball is with me. That's the way they were playing, and that's because there's no idea that there's anyone in the squad better than me, that's going to take my shot from me. Like maybe Rashford is there, and not a player that has the best attitude, but it's a player that maybe Garnacho knows the manager doesn't like him, but the manager could start him if I don't play very well in this game. So that maybe in some way changes the attitude. He doesn't have to play the guy. He just has to be there. And that just serves as an option or as a warning to people that, you have to do well on the pitch. Because if you notice, Garnacho's performance in this last season wasn't over time. Like every game, he kept getting worse. He kept being much more difficult for him to convert the chances that he had, that sort of thing. So I think that it was all down to the fact that there was no competition that they had. And I think that maybe having a selection headache then becomes a very, very good problem that you want to be having at this point
But he
because
started playing
um
Garnacho away from the team, right? Because he was playing Kobe Mino in that role for a while.
was it oh yeah, exactly. But Kobe Wino not really cut out for that role. So like you get the signal too. The players are seeing the signal. They know he's struggling for they know the manager is struggling for lack of options. And they're always going to weaponize it. I think that's if it was a game, if it was a team where uh we had two options in attack, I don't think that he would have the goals to complain to the manager, that he wasn't starting, or to complain in the media that he wasn't starting the final
I didn't
in the
like that
Europa
at
League.
all. That's too much for a
Like,
player to do. You have too much of an attitude
exactly,
problem if you're doing that. And I think
exactly.
United
So
don't play as a team at all, right? Because they don't pass the ball to each other only.
exactly, you get like he doesn't pass. Like I noticed this. Like I think I was discussing this. Like Garnacho was so you can see the players playing like children on the pitch. Garnacho is unwilling to pass to Højlund, and Bruno is watching them at some point. Like, oh my God, what's wrong with these kids? Like you can always see his reaction anytime Garnacho misses a chance that he could have passed to Højlund. He can't say anything. He can't tell. He can't tell them. You should pass. Because maybe at some point he isn't doing it himself as well because he doesn't trust Højlund to put the ball in. But in some cases, he's more valid than Garnacho because Garnacho is downright missing those chances. It's like putting those
He was
chances.
missing sitters. He was missing open
He was
goals.
just
Even I
missing
could
them.
have scored those
So,
goddamn goals.
so he was just missing them. So, but he couldn't react. Like I could see there was a time where like Højlund was complaining bitterly on the pitch that ball was supposed to come into him, and then Garnacho ignored. Like he just walked away. He didn't say anything, and Bruno was like his expression was like, "What do I tell these young people like
I
to
know
do?"
Garnacho needs to go at this point because he has an attitude problem which I really can't adjust with. I mean, he's younger than me. He's younger than us. And at this point of time, why do you have such a like balloon head on your head that you are very so like obtrusively antagonistic towards people? Because I think if I get correct me if I'm wrong, he missed a lot of sitters in the semi and the final of the Europa League. There was even if he had less game time in the final, he had
Yeah,
one very clear chance to give us like an equalizer in the match. If I'm not wrong, if I'm remembering this correctly, So where does he get off complaining about the manager that why did I not start? You even if you do not start and you're getting a chance, you're not scoring
And
the goals that you're supposed to.
honestly, like I think he missed a lot of chances last season. There was this, I think, was it the semis or the one I forgotten, the one we played against this Spanish team, like Bilbao, like the second leg. He
Bilbao,
almost killed us. He
probably
almost killed
semis,
us. Yeah, he almost killed us in that match, the second leg. He missed a lot of chances in the first half. And then we had already won the first leg. And then these guys were like pouncing on us. Like I think Amrim just did, which I always admire him for. He always has very nice subs. Like he has nice subs in his head. That after the second half, he just brought in Mount and removed Garnacho immediately because he was playing rubbish. Like he was missing a lot of chances, not squaring the ball. And honestly, like I also think that in the final there was good enough reason not to start Garnacho. He didn't deserve to start. It's not like he deserved to
especially after
start.
that semi, right? Because he did not
He
deserve it
didn't
at all.
deserve to start. No, he didn't deserve to start. Like honestly, this is like he's a player I like so much. Like Garnacho, I like Garnacho because he has a lot of talent. Also, he's like a huge fan of Ronaldo, even though that comes at the detriment of him playing in his national team. So there's a lot to admire about him personally. But I think that he's overwhelmed by his attitude to the point where he has a worse of attitude problem than Rashford, and we don't realize it. Like he has a
Oh no,
very
I'm
downright
100%
worse
sure
of
that he has a worse attitude than Rashford. Trust me, I do.
yeah,
It's
sure.
just that he was younger, so I thought he would improve. He's not.
No, but like Rashford might say, I can have an ego. I've been here five, is it 5, 8 years? I've been here 8 years.
More
I've scored a
probably
lot
if
of
you're
goals.
counting the academy as well.
Yeah, yeah. So without counting the academy, so like I've been here 8 years, scored a lot of goals, won trophies. That Rashford could legit say have an attitude, but like Garnacho has only had half a good season at United. He won the Puskás, great by the way, but he's not been so phenomenal. Like he's a very young player for the attitude that he has. Like the attitude that he has is the attitude. He has the ego of Ronaldo, and he has the ego of Ronaldo and the playing brains of Højlund. So I'm worried about where does the attitude come from? Like, why are you having this much attitude when you're supposed like he's a player that seemed like he wanted to learn. Like, as 2 seasons ago, he seemed very desperate to learn and be a team player. And the team was brimming at some point. Honestly, I feel like we got it wrong once we sacked Ole, which might be a separate discussion. I feel like we just got it wrong at that point. There was no reason to sack Ole. Like bad season. But like just imagine Man City sacking Guardiola in the middle of last season when he was consistently losing games, you know, especially given the amount of money that he spends on players and the fact that some of them never turn up at all. No one is gonna, bash Guardiola for signing about, a quarter of a dozen players at Manchester City that never ever, turn on the green light. Nolito for one, Bravo, Mendy. Maybe people talk about Grealish more recently, but these are a lot of players he signed in the past and doesn't turn up. And for all of the money that he spent on, signings last season, and also in the transfer window, and he still doesn't make, I think he struggled to get to third, but a lot of the season he spent underperforming. So you can have a rough season as a manager, maybe Ole didn't win trophies, but he was building a squad. He was building a team, and they love to play with each other. And I think that we're getting there at some point, and all of a sudden, I don't know who had the genius who had the idea to send him out and bring a technical coach to coach Manchester United. That was like I think the worst moment. Because at that point, Garnacho was like, I don't know, his attitude was ready. I'm ready to learn. I'm ready to be a student. He was improving. He had very good abilities on the ball. Like now, he doesn't even know how to play the one-on-one. Like he doesn't know how to get out of a 1v1 situation. He doesn't know how to um, win any one of those situations as well. So I don't know. Like I think he just went from to a very terrible one, and in every form, both playing performance, both attitude, and it's been going down ever since. So I would say that maybe we keep him. I don't know, to be honest. I don't know if anything is going to change, but he is a player with a lot of potential. But I think he's been a terrible player at the moment. Maybe I don't know how we can change that. But honestly, I'd be so sad if he leaves. Because I'm very sure that that's one of the things that we're going to say. He goes elsewhere and start and wins a title like McTominay and wins the best player of the league. And then we complain that, why didn't we see that? Obviously, we saw it, but we didn't have any option to resolve the situation at that point as well.
But then what I think there is a limit when you can like perceive and like have them do what they are. It's like becoming very annoying at this point of time to support the antics of this person. I don't have a problem with them like showboating, like sitting on the end of the billboard and trying to like get a photo opportunity or something. That's not something that is a problem. I'll never criticize people for doing that on the pitch. They can have some amount of like celebration and things where there are. But when you hear all these things outside the pitch and have all these problems and other issues that come around, it's really like unlikely that you want to continue and have this particular people there, right? Because there's a lot more problems in terms of how they're operating and becomes really irritable as well. So what other alternative do we have than to sell these people? Because if you're like promoting a culture of like cohesiveness in the team, you can't really have people who are like spoiling everything around for that particular individual. So it's much more likely that there are some things that you need to like accept that they need to go
Yeah,
out with and then have to like sort of like kick them out regardless. So hopefully it might make more sense and let's just see how it works.
yeah. My solution in my head is too ideal. I think if we had a lot of money, we can always fix the problem. We can always fix the problem by getting players that that they have to be second to. Like I think the approach that we are undergoing right now, is going to cause a shake-up in the team. If you have players who can replace you and you're going to be playing as a substitute, then you have every incentive to improve. One, because if you don't improve, no one is going to sign you, and also you're not going to play, and your contract is going to run out. Every year that you wait and decide to keep the attitude and not play is going to be a year that your contract keeps running out as well. So I think maybe they understand that a lot more. But right now, at the moment, what the players are feeling is like they have all the leverage. That's what they're feeling. They're feeling like they have all of the leverage, and I think that the way we can rectify that is to show them that they don't within the team. Like so that I think instills some discipline. Like the way that you sort of try and break the cohesion between players within each other, within themselves in the team, and ensure that there's no contagious behavior of the lax attitude, is when there is a effective reward system. If you're part of the good guys, you get to play. If you're part of the bad guys, you get to stay on the bench, and that's not bad for us. Maybe we pay you your wages, etc. But very soon you'll be off the books, and additionally as well, you will hurt your careers in the process. So good for you. I don't think we have the financial capacity to do this sort of thing, but obviously some people have been doing it, and this has worked for them in the past. So if you're willing as a player not to get your, like, I think that's what probably players like Sancho or even Rashford is struggling from at the moment. Like, the clubs aren't willing to take the risk of paying that amount of money for them. The only way that they can try to force an exit is to, perform on the pitch. For Rashford, it doesn't really matter on a very fast contract already, 27. So we might be the one losing there. But for someone like Garnacho, maybe you want to show him who's boss on the team. If he leaves, then there's less competition for others in the team as well. So I think there's to make the team more competitive, and maybe having more options in the team might just be a very good thing. So by the time he sits on the bench for probably 4 or 5 games with Hoyland, then he knows something has changed, and then he knows he needs to change and be more subservient to the manager. And then all of the other players who are playing know that, the reason why those ones aren't playing is because they're terrible and their attitude, and then they have to ensure that they're not part of the bad group. So if you have a group of bad guys and good guys, then that's fine. Yeah, If you are throwing out the bad guys immediately, they're bad, and they don't see why they're bad, and they keep typing freedom when other bad guys leave.
What else can you do actually? Because there's not really a lot of options just there. So you sort of like have to force yourself to think about how things operate and how things like can become better. But I think this discussion can go on and on and on, and we still will never reach a conclusion as to that. But I just want to discuss a couple of other topics before we wrap up for today as well.
So,
So let's just talk a bit about the upcoming preseason. So how do you think it's looking like for United? Because I think for me personally, I think the sales business and the transfer business needs to occur before the start of preseason. There's a lot of conversation if some players will actually be taken to preseason or not. I really don't support taking like people like Garnacho, Sancho, Rashford, and others to preseason where they might be, if they are like thinking to sell them, it's much better for them to be sold right now. And you also mentioned this idea about Casemiro being sold. I don't see any takers for Casemiro. There was this mythical Saudi bid which was like thought about for a very long time, but it never came and it will never ever come, it seems. So where do you think that we can sort of like look at these things?
I think that it might be difficult um to to say not to take them to preseason. Especially if we are finding it difficult to sell them. Obviously, for someone like Rashford, he's been trying to pitch himself online, by showing that he's going to work out in the gym, etc., etc. So, I think it's going to be difficult to sell them, without having them play in the preseason. But also, I think that more priority, to be honest, has to be given to players who are coming in and actually forming a cohesive unit for the upcoming season. But to be honest, do we have a lot of time? I think that we are in the state where beggars can be choosers, to be very honest, and we don't have a lot of time to sort of package and decide. I think the earlier preseason squad, the one that went to Asia for the tournament there, didn't have Rashford and Sancho, but it had Garnacho in the team. I don't know maybe why Amram did that, but perhaps in my head, I'm thinking that we don't have a lot of time to be choosers. I don't think a lot of these players are going to leave. I'm very certain that Sancho will leave. I'm very certain that Sancho will leave. I don't know about Garnacho. I think Garnacho should leave. I don't know about Rashford. I think he is likely to leave as well. Anthony as well. I don't know. Betis want to buy him for, but they're telling Manchester United, don't worry, we'll buy him, but we'll be co-owners. I don't know how that's going to work. So I think that there's a lot of difficulties around actually offloading them, and maybe not adding them to the preseason squad would be still more difficult to sell. But I don't think anyone really takes the preseason game seriously. So we might have to cut our losses on these players and maybe offer them at discounts to clubs to get them off the books, if that might help. Or that means that we have to deal with loan deals, which are also difficult because the players are on high wages as well. So teams aren't willing to, take this option usually. So I think it's going to be difficult. But if we want to focus on building a cohesive unit, we might just have to leave them out. But the problem here is that if we don't eventually get to sell them, then that just becomes a problem again, all over for the team. I don't know how much of importance, but I think that the way Amarim should assign an importance is to getting the in business done, and any player he wants out should probably communicate to the team that he wants this player out, and try to see what they can work around that. But I think the more important thing is to ensure that the people who are coming in know how to play with the others as fast as possible in the preseason. Otherwise, no matter how much good players that you sign, if they really don't know how the other players, are on the team, it's going to be difficult for them to gel when this actual season starts, and that might create a problem all over again. Especially given that, like we discussed yesterday, our fixtures are going to be really, really solid from the start of the season, so we don't have a lot of time.
But it's scary as well, right? Because if you find that there's a lot of problem that is coming around from preseason, you ideally want the training and the input to happen during preseason. Firstly, because of this entire probable problems that occur, because one, you don't really know how your players are going to embed into your system when they're coming from other teams. I think Amorim's lack of a preseason and this new system that he was implementing became the huge problem for the team in the beginning because nobody really knew what to do. And I don't think they've still figured out what to do. And that
Yeah.
becomes like a huge issue as well. So I don't know. I don't know. I think there is a lot of conversation point there, but so, but it's just like a lot of different methods to get this thing done. I'm happy that we at least get a few signings in before preseason, which is never the case with United. We often just sign people well into the season start,
Yeah.
which is very irritating. But what can we say? The other question then becomes that what kind of positions? Because we have talked about the center forward over yesterday and today for very extensive amount of time. We've talked about the midfielder, but I think, and we have talked about the center back and the goalkeeper. We are really missing out on wing backs. I think we are very light on wing backs. I do not think that Mazraoui can do the job that he is. He's much better doing it in the center back position. So I'm pretty sure that he'll be continue to be used there. But Dallo and Ahmad probably are fine for now, for right. But I think the left wing back with just Patrick Dorgu being there is not somebody we really can rely on. While Harry Amas is a good option, I do not really think that there's enough amount of like substance which is there to like have a long season with multiple games. So how do you think we should deal with the wing back situation?
Yeah, I think that there's a very big problem on the left, um, on the wing back position, because on the right, then you have Dalo. I think Dogo is naturally right. I think he's naturally right, and maybe you have Amas, but I don't really trust him. I think he's very young, and I've watched him play. I don't think he's going to really survive running down a very, very powerful right backs. Sorry, yeah, right backs in that position as well. So I don't think he's really going to stand a chance, and needs time to develop and properly adapt to how uh the the um the strength of the people he's going to be running at. Maybe I don't think also he's a very pacey player as well. I think maybe this might be me, sounding like a broken record, but I think that we sort of caused this problem for ourselves because the position in right back, and Dalo also is very adaptable in the left, and also is good at playing, is in the left back position as well. I don't know, for the life of me, I can never understand why United sold Wan-Bissaka and signed Dogo. Like, I can't understand this, to be honest. Like, I know that Wan-Bissaka versus Dalot, people always make the comparison. Dalot good attacking wise, Wan-Bissaka poor attacking wise, good defensively. But that's an equal comparison to make. But if you think about it, the job of a right back as well is to ensure that there's adequate cover for the people who are playing, in the centre back role, especially at that point where he was playing. We're not playing this 3-5-2 system, and we didn't need more of an attacking player. So I don't really know why. I can't really understand why we sold the player. For a player that was very, very good and one of the best right backs in the league, only second to, I think, Trent at that point. And Trent was not good defensively as well, and that was also the comparison that people were making. Uh, and also his attacking game was improving, and it was improving consistently as well within the season. He was scoring goals. He was also assisting at some point. Uh, but additionally, it's not like Dalot is like great attacking in terms of when it comes to attacking output. He just like everyone just throws in balls inside. Not most of those balls are too deep, so the goalkeeper gets them every time. Like number of crosses played. Like I think that a lot of people maybe mistake the modern wing back game to number of crosses played. And, most of those crosses that people are playing in are not going anywhere. Like they're just meeting the keeper. Like Dalot probably plays like 20 crosses before one goes in. I'm not saying he's a terrible player, obviously, but he's not really as far away from Wan-Bissaka as many people like to claim in terms of the attacking part of the ball. But the reason why I'm surprised and why I'm like looking down on the Dorgo signing is one, Dorgo and Wan-Bissaka are relatively, close in age, maybe just 2-3 year difference. But Wan-Bissaka was already adapting to the team he was playing in. Secondly, as well, Wan-Bissaka is far better defensively than Dorgu is, far better. So I think we downgraded, to be very honest. far better than he is defensively. Dogu makes a lot of mistakes. The Chelsea game, like it was just like a transparent how do you say fodder for like the Chelsea to score that goal. And also in terms of the attacking sense of his game, he's very good at he makes very good runs in that position, especially the left back position. But his crosses are horrible. They are horrible. Like, so I don't see outputs. The only thing he's good at is making those runs. He's poor defensively. He's also poor with his delivery. So I think that we downgraded. I don't understand. I think having Wan-Bissaka will probably fix a huge lot of the headaches that we have, because then we can move Dalot comfortably into that position, have Wan-Bissaka play in the right back role. And also as well, I don't think that that's much more of an right wing back role rather. I don't think that's much more of an issue, given that Ahmad can also play there. So I don't know, but like that's why I also can't understand the Leon signing. Maybe we want to play him at left back, but what happens? Like, why are we signing so much wing backs at this point? Especially given that you also mentioned now that there's Hamas in the team. So I don't really know why. Why? Maybe because the system relies on that, anyways. But to be honest, I don't think that we are signing even the right players to that particular role, especially at left wing back, because I think that's where we're lacking currently at the moment.
There's not much we can say. I think they're not confident about the wing backs to begin with, and if this confidence is not there, they're automatically going to have problems with how they are. But we can at most just be happy and try, instead of like saying that it's not possible for us to do what we're doing. But there's always like limited amount of things that we can probably look into and say that they're going to work out for us. So let's just see the fingers crossed that things work out properly in that sense. But just like before we wrap up and do all, because we've been talking for quite a while now and we've discussed so many things, what would like your ideal summer be like for United?
Oh, ideal summer. My ideal summer for Manchester United. Incomings. I want to see Victor Osimhen incoming. I want to also see Mbimo. I think that if we have that attacking set, it's going to be like, a mathematical set, a very, very lit and shiny one. I think that we're going to the next season, solving our problem that we talked about earlier, which is goal scoring. Who do I want to see leave? Uh, Professionally, who do I want to see leave? I actually think that Lindelof, I think he's already leaving as well. I don't think Maguire will be able to leave, but I think he should. He's not going to leave, obviously, as well. And nobody's going to complain that he plays shit most times, even though he just comes. He's trying to, be the McTominay of the attack by coming in and heading a few goals sometimes. That's obviously not because he's great at it. It's just because Højlund is terrible and horrible at it anyway. So I want to see Maguire go. But I'm not really sure that's going to happen as well. Um, Garnacho, I think that it would be ideal for him to leave. One, because I really like the player and I don't think he can succeed at United because of how things have turned out. So I think that for United and for him, it's the best move for him to go. For Sancho, I think it's best for everyone if he leaves. I really knew that he was a very good player at Dortmund. I always had doubts he would succeed at United. But yeah, I think we tried. We failed. I don't think he ever had a bright moment at United, to be very honest. So I'd like to see him go as well. For Anthony, to be honest, I don't know. He played very well for Betis sometimes, but he's not like he was fantastic. He didn't become Maradona at Betis. He was just Anthony. Played in a less competitive league, and he was still doing the same things he was trying to do in the Premier League, which may not work every time because no one is going to give you that space to try and call the ball, in. So I think I would like to see him leave as well. Um, for Rashford, I don't want to see him go. I think he's trying to put in the work to get back into the team, which is better than Zexi, who is partying in, I think, Barbados. But no one is going to talk about that anyway. So I think my favorite Manchester United player of the the last decade behind the gear should stay. Because I think one, he has been a very good servant of the club. And beyond that as well, he broke in at the point where we we never expected that, we'd have someone of that potential, and he did very well. Even though the criticism that he has received has been, he hasn't played well for the last 5 years. I think that's a lie. To be very honest, Ten Hag's best season at United, where he got the the title for having the best performance for any debut season by a manager, was down to Rashford, and the 21 goals he scored in that season. After most of them after coming back from the World Cup, where he also performed very very well at as well. So I don't really buy the claim that Rashford has been a horrible player since the 1990s. I think he has been horrible some seasons, but who always has a very good season every time. He's not a. I think a lot of people match the expectations of Mbappe, who obviously isn't meeting those expectations as well. They map it onto Rashford. Rashford was never Mbappe, even though they broke in around the same time. He never had the talent of Mbappe or the quality of Mbappe, so he was just Rashford. And I think that the expectations that are placed on him are too high. He was also never Martial. He wasn't as good as Martial. Otherwise, they were pretty much the same age when we signed Martial for around over 60 million pounds. And Rashford was still an academy player that only got a chance to play because most of the other senior players were injured. So I think the expectations on him to either improve in certain way and become astronomical as of a player are too high. I never had that expectation of him, and I think that he did well for someone who had to adapt to a lot of players in the team. I want to see him stay, even though he doesn't start. He played very very well for Aston Villa if people watched him. Given that they also played in the league, and they had a squad that had players who could compete for the shirt, and he benched Watkins, who had been a standout player for how do you say, for Aston Villa in the season. He benched Watkins in that team as well. So I think that for a player who has done that much, and maybe has had issues, but I think that the spotlight is always on him. And even though there are other players who have some faults as he does, and to be honest, I don't see the attitude that people like Sancho has, the freedom fighter Sancho, or the attitude that Garnacho has, given the disappointment he has been for the most part of his young career as well. But I don't want to see Rashford become a starting player. I just think he can stay and contribute to the team as well, and he's willing to do that. And we might need him in certain games. Højlund, I think, should stay. He's a very young striker, did well at Sampdoria. I think he's just lost his confidence and needs to learn from a well-proven striker. Zexi should stop partying around town with women and should focus more on the team. But he's also fantastic as a player, and I would like to see him stay. So I think we should be good if we get the 3 transfer business done. Maybe I'm not really sure about the goalkeeping role, to be honest. I don't know. Goalkeepers are like a gamble, so I'm not really sure what we should do about Onana or Bayern there. But I think you mentioned a very important point at the start. If you're scoring 100 goals, if you score more goals, then that's the game. If you score more goals and you concede, then you win. So I think what matters is what we are doing to actually score goals, because if you don't score, then the opponent is going to knock on your door and score. So, which is usually the problem that we have most times.
Yeah, somehow just always ends up becoming a problem in that sense. So we just need to like figure out what to do well and what to do in a proper sense of things so that we're not really creating a lot of problems or issues. But like again, interesting discussion, Sam. Thank you so much for coming on board and having these interesting thoughts shared with us all. I'm glad to have you here and
Okay.
like hope to have you again soon.
Yeah, I wanted to ask if what would you like to see? What would you also like to see in the team?
Definitely. I think there is a lot of feedback that can be there. So if you're watching, please let us know in the comments what you would like to see us discuss
Definitely.
more. Also, please contribute towards your thoughts about Rashford and all things that we discussed. Let us know down in the comments below. Please hit the subscribe button if you're a new subscriber. Do that entire like, share, comment aspect so that we know that this video is reaching whoever we wanted to reach again. Thank you for tuning in and see you again next week.
Thank you very much, everyone, for joining in. And thanks, Kaushik, for having me. Hope to join in sometime soon after we sign the cement.
Definitely, definitely. See you soon as well, Sam.
Yeah.